Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out today, this afternoon, on a lovely Wednesday. My name is Jessica Gardner. I am a proud working SAG actor and the owner of the Actors Key West. And today I'm here to moderate the Artios nominee comedy television panel. Yay! So thanks to you all who showed up here. And to everyone watching online, either live or later, welcome. Thanks for watching. We have an exciting panel. If you are watching us live, please tweet us any questions that you might have for our panelists. Hashtag SAF, as in Sag-Aftra Foundation, and that's at Sag-Aftra Found. Or you can email us at livestream@sagfoundation.org. So right now I'm going to introduce our fabulous panelists. We are so lucky to have these two comedy casting ladies with us. We have Eyde Belasco, who was nominated for her work on Transparent. And Tracy Lilienfield, who was nominated for her work on Grace and Frankie. Congratulations to you both on your nominations, and thank you so much for being here. If we could get started by just having you each tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here. Which I know you love doing.
I love this so much. I'm Eyde. I grew up in Los Angeles. I got an internship in casting while I was in college through the Academy of TV Arts and Sciences. And as soon as I graduated, I was lucky enough to get a job as a casting assistant and was a casting assistant for many, many, many years, doing every different variation of casting, television, movies of the weeks, commercials, animation, and eventually went out on my own. And I do primarily independent feature casting. I do one television series, and I do all the West Coast casting for the Sundance Institute.
That's great, thank you. Was there a mentor or someone who guided you along the way?
I worked for so many different casting directors. I worked with Rick Pagano and Debbie Manwiller for about 5 years. It was my longest job, and I'd say that I'd consider them my mentors. They taught me a lot of really important things.
Mm-hmm. Tracy.
Hi. Not from LA, from New York. Woohoo! Worked there mostly in theater, Broadway and off-Broadway, and lots of regional theater. Came to LA just to check it out for 3 months, but that was over 25 years ago. Didn't mean to stay here. And when I came, I started working for the Pasadena Playhouse. I was the resident casting director there for a few seasons, because that's what I knew how to do. And then I really saw what casting for theater was out here. Very, very different than in New York, and hard, too hard. And lucky enough, I actually had worked on Kate and Alley in New York. There weren't very many television shows shot in New York at that time, and certainly not very many comedies. There was, I think, Cosby and Kate and Alley, and I had worked on Kate and Alley through Lynn Kressel's office. So that qualified me to cast comedy, and just started doing that. And I think, I think the sitcom, which I've mostly done, really translates well if you come from theater, because it's live in front of an audience, and the work week is the same, where you rehearse all week and then perform in front of the audience. So that was an easy transition for me, and lucky.
And how about you? Any mentors along the way, or things that you learned?
I didn't work for lots and lots of casting directors. I was so lucky. I worked mostly for a woman named Liz Woodman in New York, and she was fantastic and had really great taste. And I think, you develop your own style of running your office, but taste, you have to have instinct, but it also has to be cultivated, I think. And I was lucky enough to interact with people, I think, who had really good taste.
That's great. And so that's how you got here. How did you get involved with each of your projects? Coming from a film background, was it because Jill Soloway, the creator of Transparent, had mostly worked in films? Is that how you connected, or?
Jill and I actually have a mutual friend who had introduced us when she was looking for a casting director for her first film. I didn't work on her first film, but a year later, or so, she reached back out to me and said, I don't know if you do television, if you're interested in television, but I have a pilot. It's for Amazon. Would you be interested in meeting on it? And I said, yes. And that's what happened.
But may I ask her a question?
Yeah.
Well, had you ever done a pilot at that point?
Yes, I had, when I worked with Rick Pagano, and actually a few other casting directors, I had worked on TV and pilots prior, but it was 10 or 15 years earlier that I had done my last television.
Because it's such a different thing.
It is a very different thing, more so for the big studios, which are the ones I had worked on. This was for Amazon, and it really feels as if I'm casting an independent film. For this particular show, maybe it's Jill, maybe it's Amazon, but it felt like casting what I normally cast.
At the pace?
It was fine.
No, I'm not just asking if you had a problem.
No, the pace wasn't. I still do. I'll do a little bit of everything. I do commercials. I'll do whatever interests me. And I'd say commercials have a much crazier pace than this particular show. But I certainly, previous pilots I've worked on, it was a crazier pace and an amazing amount of people that needed to be seen and then not liked and then seen all over again, and that it wasn't the case on this.
Do you think if you were approached about another television show, you would continue, take on more TV?
I don't know.
Or is it just specifically
This is
Amazon?
really, it's such a great fit for me, and I just love the whole show and the people and Amazon that I don't know if anything else would ever compare.
Tracy, how about you? How did Grace and Frankie come to you?
25 years ago, I worked on a show called Dream On that Marta Kaufman created with David Crane. They did go on to create another show.
You might have heard of it.
You all know, called Friends. We had stayed friends through the years and always wanted to work together again. And I was so happy and grateful when Grace and Frankie was happening and we got the opportunity to work together again.
So exciting. Both such amazing shows, obviously. I'm sure some of you, or a lot of you, are all fans of the shows. Right. I want to specifically talk about Transparent a little bit first. The big question, how familiar were you with transgender issues before starting when Jill came to you? I'd really be interested in hearing what that learning process was like for you, or if you already kind of understood it, or...
I mean, I was aware of the transgender community, but I don't know that I was aware of all of the transgender issues that were out there. Jill, we have 2 transgender consultants, producers on our show, and Jill and the 2 of them wanted to make sure that the cast and crew really did understand what this show was going to be about and wanted to make it as true to life as possible. So we were educated. I mean, there was a class, not a class, but a meeting, a nice meeting / class that happened before the pilot was shot, really, and it got all crew and cast in the room to just listen and learn and take home packets and.
Really? That's fascinating,
It's
because
really
there is a lot to learn. There's new terminology.
And it's you continue to learn as the show has been going on for the last couple of years. So much has happened in the real world, and I think we're all continuously learning about this and many other things.
And I understand that Jill feels very strongly about having trans people in trans roles. What's that process been like? Has that been difficult, or?
No, I mean, I put out breakdowns for a lot of these roles, but also because of our 2 consultants, they are able to reach out around the country, the community, and they have found a lot of people that I've then brought into auditions. So that's helped the process as well. So it's reading a lot of people that aren't necessarily actors for these roles, but yes, it is really important for Jill to have true-to-life people playing these roles.
So if there's someone watching right now on the other side of the country, and maybe they wanted to put themselves on tape for you, is that something you're more likely to look at because of
I mean,
this specific situation, a transgendered person?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I've certainly been contacted by many transgender people directly, but also through Reese and Zachary, who are our transgender consultants.
That's fantastic. That's so innovative and fantastic. That's really amazing. Congratulations on all of that. I think that's fabulous. Yeah. Tracy, let's move on to Grace and Frankie, which I have to admit is probably my favorite show on Netflix.
Goodness, thank you.
I love it so much. Obviously, I mean, we're actors, so what's not to like when you've got the, quad cast from heaven doing this hilarious work. But I'm interested to know about what it was like bringing on the supporting cast, especially for the pilot, like Ethan Embry and Joe Morton and June Diane Raphael, who are just amazing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we had not only the 4 of them, but we had 5, 6, 7, and 8 series regulars, the kids. I call them the kids, but they're the adult kids. And that was a challenge for sure, because they knew that it was called Grace and Frankie, and it was never going to be the Bud and Brianna show. There are always, in a pilot, there are so many, you're vying for people that other people we were in traditional pilot season casting time, and these roles had huge backstories and not so huge parts in the pilot. So we were desperate to have the right people, and they were very, very, very specifically written. But it was hard to convey that to people who we were wanting to consider taking these roles on. And of course, there always are financial considerations as well. We had, as you can imagine, spent a whole lot of money on the other 4. Excuse me. So it was tough. And we ended up with 4 actors who come from very, very different backgrounds. And different genres and different ways of working, not to mention the 4 that we have who weren't exactly in their comfort zone for what we were going to do. And I think it was interesting, and it was a struggle and a challenge to make it work and find the right tone for all of them.
And I'm interested in that because when you're watching the show, obviously it's written by Marta Kaufman and Howard J. Moore. They come from decades of sitcom experience, but there's a quality, there's a single camera kind of drama, I guess we're calling it dramedy, but even thicker than that to it. So have you found challenges with people auditioning for the show during the series, trying to get that correct tone without having seen anything, and what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Big yes. Tone for me is what I struggle with the most on this show. When we started, I think we were not completely clear what the tone was going to be. How funny was it going to be? But we didn't want it to be sitcom-y, like that was a bad thing. And yet, it's funny. We have jokes, but we don't have setup, punchline. We have punchlines, but we don't have setups. So and that's a whole nother skill. That really takes something. And I found, of course, before we premiered, people really didn't know what the tone was. But even after the first season, as we were casting this season, I saw a lot of actors really struggle to know what we wanted. And I think it changes script to script sometimes, sort of what we're talking about at the moment, because there are really, really truthful, dramatic moments, and then there are other episodes that are a little lighter. Yeah.
Was there like a one-liner or something that you would say during actors' auditions or something to try to get them to get it? Or
No, because I wouldn't, I struggle myself, and so I don't think that, we didn't steer people. We really didn't steer. We let you do your thing, and when we hear it, we know it, and then you get it.
You have been casting for television for a very long time. We won't say how long, a very long time.
That's a perfect compromise.
A long time. What has the process been any different for you working on a Netflix show versus working on a network show?
Yes, of course. We didn't have, this is the first original half hour that Netflix did. So So
was
there
a
was a
learning
learning curve for everybody, I would say. You know, again, we didn't know exactly what we had even when we started, and we didn't completely know where we were going. But they were, you know, typically in a big studio and network television series, you're answering to a lot of people in a million steps along the way. Just for starters, Netflix doesn't even have an in-house casting person, so that was, you know, 100 calls I didn't have to take. And our studio, which is Skydance, they're fantastic, and they were supportive, and they were there every step of the way as we were casting the pilot. And there was no testing process, really. We put everybody on tape, and the people that we liked, we sent over. Nobody went and waited nervously and looked at the other 4 people who were testing for the same part, and, you know, all that whole very, very typical process that you know about didn't happen. Wow. So that was good.
That sounds better.
It is. It was lovely. A little more elegant.
Same experience for you with Amazon?
Yeah, this was Amazon for Amazon, and when I started, there wasn't anybody in-house for casting. There is now, but when I started, there wasn't, so it was 2 people at Amazon that were looking at the tapes along with Jill and the producers, and really just, I think, trusted Jill and what her vision was, and let her cast the actors that she wanted to cast.
That's fantastic.
And
it
yeah,
sounds
no
like you get a lot more
real
freedom and
testing for us
creativity on your end as well. So that's nice. Before you mentioned developing your own style, that you had mentors, but you develop your own style in the casting room. I'd love to hear what it's like for anybody who's never been to either of your office, if you could kind of walk us through what that looks like. Are we on tape? Is there a reader? How many people you call in? That kind of thing.
For me, yeah, everybody comes in and goes in on tape. I tape everything, pre-reads, director sessions, every take, because I've had a couple actors come in from time to time and say, can we just run this one real quick? And it's the one we don't tape, and it's the best one, and you just... So I tape everything. And unless it's specifically asked by a filmmaker, I will do the reading unless they want somebody specific to come in, and if they want a man reading the male roles, but otherwise 99% of the time I'm the reader. And what's the rest of the...
That was it.
Oh, okay, yeah,
What
it's
it
just
looks
me.
like, kind of
I
walking
do a
us
lot of
through.
independent films, so with the exception of Transparent, there usually isn't the money for an assistant or an associate. So I am the person running the camera, I'm the person reading with you, I'm the person uploading it, I'm the person setting up the sessions. It's me answering the door and the phone. Tracy?
Good job.
That doesn't sound better.
I don't do all that. I wouldn't know how to. In my office, I don't tape pre-reads at all, ever. And we almost every time, unless there's some kind of emergency, have a live audition with the producers. I tape them because sometimes I send them to Skydance. If it's a big role, they want to see and weigh in. And sometimes we want to look back and refresh our memory if we loved 3 and we need to just sleep on it and look at them again. But we really believe that for comedy, you need to be live, and you need to hear the laughs. You need to have the director in the room, give you some notes. My goodness, maybe we would like to see if you could take an adjustment, and play around in that way.
I think I forgot to ask you this question. Were there any roles in particular this season or last season, Grace and Frankie, that were specifically difficult to cast or a challenge?
I think they're all a challenge, really. But I think a big part of my challenge is I've got some iconic actors in my cast, and I've seen some younger actors kind of flip out. Too nervous, too excited. And so I do try to be careful, especially because Jane particularly has kissed a lot of men on the show so far. And so I have to be, mindful. We had a fellow this season, he had about 3 lines, but it included, and he was drunk, and Jane was supposed to be drunk, and they met in a bar, and he had to pick her up. And then as she slid down, she kissed him. I mean, big time kissed him. They made out, like, for 10 minutes. So, I of course, had to be super careful that it was somebody who could physically pick her up safely, and then it would be okay to kiss him. And last season we had that, if you recall, the Timothy Murphy played the ex-con, and she made out with him a lot. And, she is stunning. So you have to... These are men of a certain age who are she's believably attracted to her, and vice versa. So,
And they can still get it done.
get it
Yeah.
done.
I get it. That must have been different. What would you say was the most challenging role, or would you mind talking about what you thought your most challenging role for Transparent has been?
It's going to be different.
Yeah, it's probably a little different.
I don't really, from the pilot, I would say it was probably the role of Josh. J. Duplass, we read a lot of people and just didn't feel like we were finding the perfect guy, and just kept reading, and people from all over the country going on tape, and then Jill went to a dinner party for filmmakers or writers, and Jay was there.
He's great.
And she's like, you feel like this guy, and will you come into audition? And talked him into auditioning. I think he might have come in the next day. I sent him the sides that night, and he came in, and I auditioned with him, and we do a lot of improvising, and I improvised with him, and I think Jill improvised with him. And he had his own series. It was a lot of working that out, but yeah, it was luck. Jill went to the right party.
Nice. And he's so great. And I love Katherine Hahn as the choice for the rabbi. Oh my gosh, really great casting.
She had
there
worked
from
with
her.
Jill on her film Afternoon Delight, so they had known each other previously.
Yeah,
But she's fantastic.
that's awesome. Let's talk about pilot season in particular, because it's coming up on everybody. And so let's get some advice from hearing about casting pilots and auditioning for them. Trying to figure out the tone of a pilot. What's your best advice to actors going in? They don't know what they're auditioning for. It's tough.
I think sometimes we're as in the dark as you are, because it's a hard thing to articulate, and that doesn't come up a lot. So I think part of the process, we're not going to find a fully formed performance in an audition, for sure, especially in pilot season if you're busy and you're running from one to another. So what are we looking for? We're looking for your instinct. What do you bring? How do you elevate the material? And what is your instinct about the tone of the thing? And making a choice, even if it isn't exactly right or something we thought of before. I mean, many, many, many times I've seen writer-producers be influenced by the choices that you all bring, and it clicks and changes something for us. So it is hard, and for heaven's sakes, you can ask a question if it's something specific. I mean, you can't just flat out say, what's your tone? And we're not going to have a seminar about the pilot, but you can ask questions for sure.
So do you think that, sometimes we hear as actors, make a strong choice, make that choice. But do you feel like with pilots, it's better to be a little fluid and moldable and maybe not have that? Or do you still think that a strong, this is what I think, this is what I'm bringing, is the best idea?
I mean, I think coming with your choice for the part, I will almost always ask somebody to do it again just to see if they can take direction. But I think definitely coming with the way you think that this role should be played, and if I know something different of what the director's looking for and I see a strong performance, I'm going to ask you to do it again a different way.
Nice. Do you agree, Tracy?
To make your choices, yes. That's your homework. That's your job. That's what makes your interpretation of that role different than the next guy's. And that's what I want to see, even if it isn't exactly what I thought I was looking for.
So if an actor has questions, ask first or do their performance and hope that you're going to allow questions and an adjustment after?
I mean, I think it matters if you ask first and I tell you something different than you planned, are you going to change it right then? I don't know. If that's
Probably.
something you think you're able to do, then ask first.
Okay. It's really whatever the
That would be a
actor
tricky thing to
feels
do, though, I think.
most comfortable with, for sure. Okay, great answers. Thank you. Casting and auditioning for a pilot, how does it differ from, for you, Eyde, casting a film, or for Tracy, casting a show in its 4th season? Let's start with Eyde. Difference between casting and auditioning for a pilot than for a film for you?
Well, I'm going to base it on this pilot.
Sure.
Because my other ones were a long time ago.
And seriously, the process has changed drastically.
I'm sure. And
Drastically.
also comparing it to network pilots, which were the ones I had worked on, and an Amazon pilot. So casting an Amazon pilot as opposed to casting my feature films, not really much of a difference. I am one of those people that reads a lot of people no matter what I'm working on. I will pre-read tons and tons of people to make sure I've seen what I think is going to give me some great choices to bring to the filmmakers. So for me, the process is very similar. Okay. I don't know.
And what's the difference between a pilot and a show in its 4th season?
Well, hopefully, a show in its 4th season is a well-oiled machine by then, and you have a 6th sense. You know what your producers respond to. You know what your writers can write to. You know what fits. You know, again, on a half hour, what I really love, again, coming from a theater background, is adding that little piece that you know fits in the ensemble. It's really my favorite part about the whole thing. So by a 4th season, you ought to really have an easy sense of how that works.
So, Eyde, you call on a lot of people. Tracy, are you the same way? Do you read tons and tons of people, especially when it comes to pilots?
I overheard an agent on the phone that he thought he had hung up, but he hadn't. And I heard him say to his assistant when I had called to ask if somebody could please pre-read, and I heard him say, my father-in-law's here, I can't say what he said exactly, but he said really mean words and bad words, and then he said, she reads goddamn everybody. So I didn't realize that I did, but I guess people think I do.
I don't know if he was upset about that or excited.
No,
Like,
mad.
hey, she reads goddamn
Mad.
everybody. Or like, oh, she
You know,
reads
they want
goddamn.
to protect them right out of reading for me. And you know, so often, even if it's an actor I know, it's because the part is tricky and I have the information. I can help you. I'm prepping you to get you to a producer session. So it's not to make you, have to get on the 405 one extra time. I can try to help.
Right. You two are awesome. I just want to say that. So thoughts on, we talked a little bit about self-submitting from transgendered actors, because that's something specifically you're on a constant, ongoing search for. But just self-submitting in general, or drop-offs on pilots for your individual offices. How do you feel about that? Someone trying to get on your radar that way?
I don't mind self-submissions in the mail, but I don't love when they just drop by the office.
How can people drop by here?
They drop by, they bring their
They
pictures.
have a box outside sometimes. Not on a.
I mean, just on the street, not on a lot.
Oh, I'm on, yes,
Yeah.
I'm in a freestanding building.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, if you're not on the studio lot,
Somewhere
obviously.
in LA.
Which is, yeah. So it's hard, especially for me, because I do so much myself, to answer the door, and then there's that awkward, am I supposed to invite them in? I feel bad turning them away. They just came all the way over here and dropped off a picture. So it's a little hard, and but I'm happy. I open up every submission. Now it's it's on the internet, not paper form, but I still do get submissions in the mail, and I open everything. That was something I was taught by a casting director I worked with. I open up all my submissions, no matter where they are, and I answer my phone calls, or I try to, but I think I've pretty much called everybody back. And I just think it's the right thing to do, to make sure you're not overlooking somebody, even if they're not at one of the big agencies, because there's great actors everywhere.
So that is a good way to get on your radar then.
Yeah, but stopping by, I don't love.
Not so much. Okay. Tracy.
I'm really always on a lot, so it's not so easy to stop by. But I'm finding that I am inundated with self-tapes, which is great, and I get it. I can't always get to everything, especially for guest star parts that are moving quickly, but I try, and I certainly open all my mail, that's for sure.
And during pilot season, since it takes a little longer, are you more likely to see something not so
Pilot
much?
season is so crazy, and you know, one of the big ways that I was saying that things have changed, of course, is because of technology. And now we have, on any old pilot, casting in London, casting in Australia, casting in Chicago, casting, you know, all over the place. And every single night I'm getting from the casting directors there huge submissions of people they've seen all day. So I do my work day, answer my calls, and then I'm there until midnight watching all the tapes that have come in every night. And it's worth it. And we're obviously hiring people from all over the place, but it is a lot to watch on top of, you know, single auditions that are coming just from people on their own.
So I just get handed a bunch of questions from the audience, so I figure I'll go through a few of them. These are great, you guys. For both of you, this is from Tony M. in the audience. Thanks, Tony. What makes you bring in an actor you've never seen or met before?
Well, assuming that they were submitted or I found them from a breakdown, their picture, their resume, it could be so many things, just credits, theater. It's a lot will have to do with a look if it's for a particular role that needs something very specific, but just
All that.
all that. I don't care if you don't have a ton of credits, as long as if it's something that it's about a look, fine. But if it is about just a great actor for a specific role, it is about the credits, and I'll just flip over to the backside and see what you've done. Or watch the reels. I like watching just a moment of the reels on whatever Actors Access or Breakdown or any of those sites. I'll spend a lot of time watching reels if I don't have time for a ton of pre-reads.
Me too. I like that.
This is from Jennifer Horlick for both of you. What is something you wish more actors would know when it comes to the casting process? Are there any myths you'd like to dispel?
I'm pretty nice.
You're dispelling that right now here in front of everybody. We see how
I
nice
try
you
to make
are.
my room really comfortable. You
Good.
don't need to be nervous or scared. There's people here who have auditioned for me. They can attest to that, I think.
You know, I think, and this comes up in workshops all the time, you know, people ask me what my pet peeves are. And I pretty typically say that my pet peeve is for you to have to worry about that. It isn't about me. It's not me judging whether you wore perfume or shook my hand or wore the same thing to the callback. You know, I want you to do your work. I want you to do your acting work and not worry about that other stuff.
Great answers, thank you. From Zach Doolin, I think it says, for both of you, what characteristics have you seen in the actors who have booked the most jobs and have become the most successful? Right?
They're just strong actors. You ask them to do something, then they can do it. You give them a change in a scene, and they do it. They are just good actors.
But I think also, you know, that intangible thing that we all recognize in people, star quality, sparkly, something special, something that draws you in, something that makes you want to watch them. And they do things that surprise you, unexpected, elevate the material.
This person wants to ask about the casting of Untransparent, I believe, the extended family and friends, the people who recur at the weddings and the funerals and the bar mitzvahs, and I'm not totally sure what the question is, but the casting process of that. I'm not totally sure what that question means, actually.
The person who asked.
Where's the person who asked? Did you want to know, were they originally recurring characters or were they co-stars that became recurring?
Is the person going to ask?
It's a good
I'm not
question.
sure.
Fess up.
It's all right, might have left.
Oh,
Or maybe
so-
it's an online question.
So what's the question exactly? I'm sorry.
Let's move on.
I don't know.
This is from Monique. In order of preference, the best way to meet or impress you: workshops, showcase, generals, plays, theater, reel, through representation.
To impress me?
Yeah, maybe to get on your radar, impress you.
I don't do workshops.
Oh, can you microphone?
I don't do workshops, but I will go to, what were the other?
Showcases,
Showcases and stuff like
theater.
that. Theater, definitely. So those are good ways.
Get your work in front of us. That,
Yeah,
that's the best
and
way to impress
even the
us.
reels. I mean, if you're submitted it and you have a reel, I've probably watched it at least the first minute of it. If it was interesting, I kept watching more. And if it wasn't, I moved on.
Good to know. Put your strong stuff up front.
Put your
We've
strong
heard
stuff
that.
up first. Yeah.
Okay, so back to pilot season. Just one last question about pilot season. Your best advice for actors in general during pilot season?
Be familiar with the material. Be prepared. You don't have to be off book, but be prepared and be comfortable. We're not, like Tracy said, we're not judging you. We really, I'm trying to make the room as comfortable for you as possible so you'll feel comfortable and you'll give me your best audition. And it makes my job easier because then I have these great auditions to bring to the filmmakers.
That's a great answer.
That's the answer. That is the answer.
Well, we are blowing through my questions here. I guess we'll say that this last question and we'll wrap it up. Just your best overall advice for all of the actors here, all the actors listening online. What's your best overall advice for the working actors of the Sag-Aftra union?
I mean, it's really what I just said. It's just be ready, be prepared, be excited, be comfortable.
Do your job. Really, that all is your job. All the preparation, all the homework, all figuring out who are the people in the room, where do they come from, what do they do, what's their typical tone, maybe, that might help. There's all kinds of things you could do, and you don't always have time. We don't always have time to be as prepared as we would like. You use your time well. There's a lot of downtime, and do your job.
Great answers. Great answers. Thank you. Well, on behalf of the Sag-Aftra Foundation, I want to thank everybody for coming and being here today, and especially to Eyde Belasco and Tracy Lilienfield. Thank you both so much. Congrats again on your nominations. And we'll see you. Thank you for the Sag-Aftra Foundation for having me. Have a great day.